Hello and welcome to another video tutorial Monday. This week I will be showing you how to color stamped images with colored pencils. And I have done video tutorials in the past about colored pencils, but this one focuses more on images that already have predetermined colors. So this is how to add depth with colored pencils versus coloring in flowers and making up your own patterns. So this is a little bit different than I've done before. First, I'm going to start out by scoring my card base with my Martha Stewart scoreboard and getting that ready. This is craft cardstock from Paper Tree Ink, and I'm going to be using the Bows and Holly set from Lawn Fawn, one of my absolute favorite sets of acrylic stamps. So, actually they're photopolymer, but you know what I mean. So I am going to get this image ready to print, ready to ink up, and so I'm going to lay it down on my card exactly where I want it and then use my clear block to pick it up. So I'm just going to use the wreath and then the Merry Christmas stamp, and I just picked it up here with my block, and now I'm inking it up with some StazOn ink. The reason why I decided to use StazOn ink for this project was because I knew I'd be using glossy accents at the end, and since Memento black ink is water soluble, I didn't want to have that possibility of messing up the ink with the glossy accents. So I used StazOn because I knew that that would stay even if it got wet. Now I'm just going to pick out my colored pencils here. I'm going to need some greens, some reds, and some browns for the wreath. So I'm just testing them on the same color craft cardstock. This is a scrap piece, and that way I know exactly how they're going to look. And I pick them out exactly how I would pick out Copic markers. I just get a really light one, a medium one, and a dark one, and get ones that look like they would blend really well together. And actually, I ended up picking out a third brown color that is darker than these two. And for the red one, I just stuck with two because that would be easier in the small space. So for the brown, I'm just going around the wreath and coloring in the direction that I feel like the twigs would go. So I'm just leaving space because I'm going to be adding more color in here, and I'm just making dashed lines and making sure to stay in the lines. Now this is the darker color, the medium color actually, and I'm just going over the areas that I colored in before, and I'm letting some of that lighter color show through, but I'm making sure to get some pretty decent coverage over the whole thing. I still want it to look like wood, so I don't want to cover it completely, but this just helps it give it depth. And now I'm going over with the very dark brown, and I'm just making some more lines, just like I did with the lightest color, and that'll really help make the brown part pop and look like real wood. So I just keep going over that until it looks exactly like I want it. With these Prismacolor pencils, since they're such high quality, you can really go over in several layers and continue to blend them, since they have such high pigment. So I finished the brown part, and now I'm going to go and start on the green holly leaves. So what I'm going to do is color in the leaves very roughly with the lightest color. I'm just making sure to get the center well covered because I'm going to go darker on the edges. So that way it's kind of nice. You don't really have to worry about trying to get really close to the lines because all you're worrying about is covering the middle. And so I've gone around with the lightest pencil, and now I'm going to take the darkest colored pencil actually and go around the outsides. And this really helps make the edges pop, and I'm actually going to use the medium one just as a blender then. So don't worry about any hard edges you might have right now, because you can go back in with the medium one and really smooth them and blend them together. That's what's great about these high quality pencils. So I'm just going to go back with the medium now and just really make everything blend together really well. And that's what's kind of magical about it. It looks like you might have colored it in with one colored pencil, but there's that something extra there with that depth and using those three colors. And it really doesn't take long at all. I think this whole coloring part without editing took me about 15 minutes, if that. And that was because I was trying to go slow for video. So now I'm going over the red parts, and this is the lightest red. And I'm just going over very lightly, making sure to just get good coverage, but not too worried about actually coloring in the whole thing. That way it'll leave me room to add more pigment with my darker red. So now I'm going to go in, and with my dark red, I'm just going to color along the edges and kind of feather it in towards the middle, leaving the middle part still that light red color. That way, it'll create this awesome three-dimensional look. And I'm also coloring the bottom of the berries too, so kind of a small C shape at the bottom of each berry. And that just really helps add that three-dimension feel to it. And I'm just trying to show you here that you just come in from the edges. So I usually just do a couple swipes and start from the edge and work towards the middle and kind of let my pencil lift off the paper. So this, I'm doing the same thing with the bow end, and you can see this very, very clearly here, that I want the middle part to be the lightest because that'll show that it's the farthest forward. And now I'm just going back over with the same light color from before and blending it all together. And it's really just that easy. You get this awesome deep red color by just using two colored pencils and not very much extra effort. Have I mentioned that I love these colored pencils? I think you get the picture. So as you can see, here's my finished coloring. And what I decided to do is jazz it up a little bit with my scoreboard. And I'm going to use this as a decorative border. So what I'm going to do is, since my card is 4¼ inches wide, I'm just going to square it 4 inches and then add a 1/4 inch in. And that'll provide me with a nice 1/4 inch border on the two vertical sides. And then I'm just going to turn it, and I decided this wasn't the easiest way to do it. I turned it again and scored at 5 1/4 and made sure that was scored really well. And then what I went back and did was scored at 5 inches, but only going from the top score line to the bottom score line. So that added some extra dimension on the top and the bottom of the card. And then I did the same thing on the other side. And there you have it. Actually, I just did it 1/8 of an inch because I didn't want it to be too much of a distance. And then I'm just going around with some vintage photo distress ink just to add some extra interest to the edges. And now I'm going back in with glossy accents to add it on the berries. And I actually went over those twice and then went over the bow once for extra dimension. So I hope you enjoyed learning about colored pencil this week. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great week.